Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday today. It's Beauty Wednesday today. I'm so excited. I love the fact that I'm dedicating Wednesdays to beauty tips and everything that you need to know these days. I just love it. I love it for me. I love it for you guys. Mwah. Today we're going to be talking about all the things that you can do, you should do to make sure that you get the best wear out of your makeup. If you have oily skin like I do, oily acne prone skin, I got you. Oily skin, even if it isn't acne prone, I got you. So we're going to go through everything that you need to do, from prepping to foundations to concealers, everything you have to do at all the important points to make sure that you get the best wear. So I already washed my face and I've used a toner and all of that, done my skincare. If you want to see a detailed skincare routine video from me, please check the description box. It's going to be linked in there. Okay, first thing that you want to do after you've done your skincare is to make sure that you start off by moisturizing, and I'm going to be using my Huda Beauty Honey Balm. It's a jelly moisturizer. I've talked about this moisturizer so much. I love it. It's my go-to for days that I'm wearing makeup. It's very hydrating, very moisturizing, leaves your skin feeling really soft and supple. So I'm going to take about this much and I'm going to apply this all over my face. With moisturizers for oily skin, you need to use something that will hydrate without sitting heavy on the skin, okay? Because that can also lead to breakouts if you're acne prone. If you use anything that is too heavy, it can actually go in and clog your pores. You have to actually use something that works for your skin type. Make sure that whatever moisturizer that you're using or you decide to use is something that is targeted in one way or the other to people who have your skin type. So from experience, moisturizers that have worked amazing for me with my oily skin are moisturizers that are gel based, that, you know, what in the world? Did you guys hear that? Or was it in my head? Someone was just like honking. Oga, calm down. I'm filming. Okay? So, moisturizers that work the best for oily skin from experience are gel-based moisturizers, moisturizers that are fluid, that have a very fluid-like consistency, and moisturizers that are kind of on the watery side of things. So these type of moisturizers most of the time are made for people with our skin type. Gel moisturizers sometimes can be targeted at both people with normal to dry skin or people with like oily skin, but best believe that they've put a lot of effort into them most of the time to make sure that people who have oily skin can use them as well. And that's what you get with this moisturizer, okay? My skin feels very hydrated, very supple whenever I use it. So gel, a bit watery, fluids, these are the type of moisturizers that you should look for, especially when it comes to consistency. I already said to stay away from heavy creams, but please also stay away from things that are too drying, things that are too mattifying. I have used moisturizers in the past that are for oily skin, in quotes, and bruh, you finish applying these things and they just suck all the moisture out of your face. No, you don't want it too drying, you don't want it too heavy. So next thing that you want to do is prime. I'm going to be using a primer from Too Faced. I've been using this primer for years. For the past 3-4 years, if you've been coming back to this channel consistently, you know that this is my go-to primer. I've tried a lot of other primers, but this I really love. So one thing that I would say, because I've used a lot of good primers for oily skin even before this, stay away from primers that are too mattifying. There's this popular one from Becca that literally sucks all the moisture out of your face. You do not want that. You don't want it. You just don't. What happens most of the time when you use primers that are too drying, too mattifying, is that it kind of sends a signal to your body that something is wrong, right? And your body tries to overcompensate by producing more oil than it will actually even produce on a normal day. So you don't want that. And aside that, primers that are very mattifying, they just make your foundation look patchy, especially if you're going in with a matte foundation on top. You're just like a recipe for disaster. I'm going to use about 1 to 2 pumps of this. This is the Too Faced Primed and Peachy Cooling Matte Perfecting Primer. I'm going to dot this all over my face. With that said, another type of primer that I also do not like are silicone-based primers. I would go for a silicone-based primer before I would go for a very like mattifying drying primer. But the thing is, the silicone ones are also not a favorite. They're very slippery. They most of the time are targeted at people with oily skin because they kind of talk about how they fill in your pores, because most of the time people who have oily acne prone skin tend to also have a problem with texture. We have bigger pores than like normal most of the time because of some of the breakouts that we've gotten in the past. So these silicone based primers are most times targeted at us, and you know, So the brands talk about how they'll fill in our pores and make for like a more even surface for your primer to like see. From my experience, I just feel like they tend to be very slippery. You can even tell when you're applying them, and I just feel like the makeup just slips off as well sometimes. If you're producing a lot of oil, like it will not, they from experience don't do that much when it comes to oil control. Yes, fill in your pores, etc. Yeah, they can do that, but they should never be primers that you bank on to actually control oil, or when you're going for maximum wear. I feel like your foundation just kind of slides off. So you guys can see that I've done my primer, and yes, my face is no longer maybe as shiny as it was when I did the moisturizer. But one thing that my face is not right now is matte. My face is not matte or dry. This is a good place to start. This is where you want to start, okay? So I think that I'm going to talk about setting sprays at this point before I continue. Guys, I have answered this question several times, but I am not a very big fan of setting sprays. They work amazing for some people. From experience, they've just not worked that great for me. I've talked about this before, and the reason is because I feel like most setting sprays just kind of, I don't know, it's either one, they kind of make my face feel weird. Like there's this setting spray that I remember that I tried. I think that that's actually the only product that I do not like from Huda Beauty. They have this setting spray that after you use it, like it kind of locks things in place, and even when you're smiling, there's a weird layer over your face. I don't like the word weird, but then you can actually feel that there's something on your face that is kind of locking things in a way that is slightly uncomfortable. That's what I feel. It's either that, or most of the time setting sprays that are very popular here on YouTube just break my makeup down faster. But one thing I can say is that if you have a setting spray that is kind of on the other end of things, like the Huda Beauty one that I just explained, that creates a very serious barrier that kind of locks things in place, you can actually use a setting spray at this point. You can spray it all over your face instead of using a primer. Do not do that and use a primer. Just use a primer, or you use that. So one good example is like before my Urban Decay The Sleep setting spray finished, I would use it sometimes. I kind of just spray it all over before I'll go in with foundation. And what it does is that it creates a barrier. The same thing with the Huda Beauty setting spray. So it will create a barrier between your skin and the foundation and give it a layer to actually sit on. So setting sprays are one of those things that I personally believe that I can do without. However, I like hydrating or fixing mist. A very good example is this one from Pixi. This is their makeup fixing mist, and you guys can see that I've used this quite a bit. So this is not drying or mattifying or whatever. This is perfect for when you've used a lot of powder, and that's one thing that I think I'll also recommend for people who have oily skin. So sometimes we can overdo it when we prime and use like a very mattifying foundation. If you want to bring back that skin-like finish or take away that very matte powdery look, use this type of fixing spray. So fixing sprays, hydrating mists are actually very, very different from setting sprays most of the time. So glad that I've kind of explained the setting spray thing, because I know that some of you are going to ask me if I don't say anything about setting sprays, fixing sprays at all by the end of this video. Next thing that I like to do is to go in with a powder and set my face. This is a hack that is very, very popular here on YouTube. Tried and tested by me, and I can tell you guys for sure that it works, okay? If you have oily skin, and I'm going to pack this into my brows, like I love doing this because it just takes away the shine that tends to come through really quickly for us. Trust me, you can do foundation over this. I've been doing this for years, but just make sure that you're pressing the powder into the skin until it kind of disappears, okay? You guys can see that it's all gone almost now. You do not want to sweep it off like this. You want to press it in. This is not going to be a full makeup tutorial because I really want to focus on the things that matter. I'm going to do my eyebrows and define them and be right back to tell you guys what I always do next, okay? So I filled my eyebrows in. So next thing I'm going to do is to prime my eyes. And to prime my eyes, I'm going to be using my MAC 24 Hour Extend Eye Base, okay? One thing straight up for almost everyone who I know who has oily skin, and sometimes even people who have normal skin, people who do not have oily skin, is that you find out that your eyelids are oily, especially where you get the folds. And that's the reason why if you don't prime properly, your eyeshadow can crease. It will create some cracks or lines over that very beautiful, marvelous blending that you've done. So one thing that I highly recommend is to prime your eyes This is basically going to prevent the oil from coming through. It's going to also keep your eyeshadow intact, because I feel like most of the complex work we tend to do when it comes to makeup is always in the eye area. The lines, the blending, all those little things is in this area. So why do you want to do all of that and then just like let oil ruin it? Make sure that you prime. This primer that I've just used is one of my favorites. I've been using it for years. It's the MAC 24 Hour Extend Eye Base, but there are also other primers that I also really love. I'm just going to blend my concealer out again. Just blend it into that primer so that I don't have any harsh lines. You can also apply this with a brush if you want. So the reason why this eyeshadow primer is my go-to is because it does not have any color payoff. It dries clear. But there are some other eyeshadow primers that I like, and I just want to tell you guys what they are really quickly. I really like the ABH eye primer. It looks like this. This is flesh toned, but I think that this is something that you would call a nude for white people. You can blend it out and have an even base to work with, but I wish that ABH would kind of expand this. I don't know if they have already, but I wish that they will expand this to kind of make some of their primers a bit darker. Okay, so next eyeshadow primer that I really like is the ones from P. Louise. This is the P. Louise base. These come in different colors, unlike the ABH one that I showed you guys. I used Rumor 4. Rumor 4 is very close to my skin tone. Okay, just to show you guys. So if you're my skin tone or around my skin tone, this will give you a very nice flesh toned like prime. Kind of almost looks like you've used a concealer that is the same shade as your skin tone. And like I explained, these go from like really light to really dark, so there's something for your skin tone, and that's why I love them for that. So the last primer that I have here is Eyessurance by Yanga Beauty, a Nigerian brand, and let me tell you guys, this is by far the best eyeshadow primer that I have ever used from a Nigerian brand. You get this flesh toned color here, but then you work this in just gently. The good thing about this is that once you've blended this out, like if you're using like very bright colors, it also gives those colors a very like nice base to adhere to and stand out on. So if you want colors that are like bright or neons, if you want them to really stand out on our skin tone, you have to use some sort of base to enhance those colors. So these are my favorite primers, but you can also use concealers to prime. If you have a very mattifying concealer, I know for example the one by Makeup Revolution is very mattifying, you can actually use that to prime your eyelids as well. In case you do not have a primer, you do not want to get one, you want to use what you already have, you can actually use some liquid concealers to prime. The only thing that I'd highly recommend that you do, if you do that or if you choose to do that, is to make sure that you set your primer with a setting powder. So this primer that I use dries down matte. You do not need to set it, but just for demo, this is how you ideally should set whatever primer that you've used in this area, especially let's say if you're not really sure about it, or even if you've used a concealer, use a translucent setting powder, go over that area. Trust me, your eyeshadow is not going to move, okay? It's not going to move when you do this. So I'm going to go on ahead and do my eyeshadow and be right back. I just really want to come back to the skin because that's the most important thing. So let me do my eyeshadow and I'll be right back. So done with my eye makeup and I'm back. One thing that I want to say to you guys, and I feel like I have to personalize a lot of the things that I'm saying, but I think that if you have oily, acne prone skin, if you have oily skin, you never want to start out dewy. I'm not ever after when I'm done doing my makeup after like a dewy finish immediately. The thing is, if you have oily skin, you will get dewy eventually, eventually. It is bound to happen. I know, like, you see all these people with like dewy skin on Instagram, like, I get it, right? But I just feel like if you start out dewy with oily skin the minute you're done with your makeup, like, it's just going to be a lot of touching up down the line. So try to keep it matte and your face just eventually gets dewy in a nice way, okay? That's my take on that. And I'm saying this especially for a country like Nigeria where it is hot. I live in Nigeria, it is hot. Like with warm climates, guys, the dewiness that you're looking for, it will eventually meet you. So what I do is I just try to keep things matte. If you have oily skin as well, I would highly recommend that even if you're using full coverage foundations, please apply a little at a time. I'm going to be using a full coverage foundation for the sake of emphasis in this video. And this is the NARS Soft Matte Complete Foundation. This foundation is matte, not very matte, but it is matte, okay? It's not a dewy foundation. It gives you a soft matte finish, but it's also very full coverage. You also do not want to apply a lot of foundation at once, especially if the foundation is full coverage. The reason is because the more products you apply, the more your skin will break down, and it's inevitable. That's the reason why you go from matte, soft matte, whatever type of matte finish you've ended up with when you're done with your makeup, to it being a little bit dewy towards the end of the day. You cannot really do anything about that. It will eventually happen, but just know that all of that, it's just this process of your face breaking down the products that you have on your skin because of the oil that it is producing. So I'd highly recommend that you use this type of brush. You need a domed brush like this, something that is densely packed, I would say. So taking a little bit of that foundation, I'm just going to stipple this in just a little at a time. This foundation is very full coverage, but I'm going to show you guys how I ideally like to use it, okay? I'm not going to apply more than I have now in this area here, but just take your time and work it into the skin. The reason why I like this foundation is that because it's soft matte and not like very, very matte, it is very forgiving when it comes to lines, fine lines on the face, and even small lines. It's not one of those foundations that just settle into that place and just start creasing up immediately. The texture, the formula you get with this makes this a lot more forgiving. You guys can see that I already have very decent coverage, especially this part of my face, but I actually do not use a lot of product. It's a combination of the brush and also the type of foundation that I'm using. Initially, when I got this, I was applying a lot. So my MAC Studio Fix Fluid, which I normally use, is a medium to full coverage foundation. And what I'll do with that is that I actually apply a lot to get full coverage. I used that technique when I first got this, and bro, by the end of the day, it looks like I'm wearing a mask. The foundation looks amazing, but then it just gives this illusion that you have way more on your face than you actually do. So please, with full coverage foundation, you want to go in with a very light hand, okay? Just see what I'm doing. Very, very gently. So I'm going to blend it into this area here. All in all, with this foundation, I'll say that I've just used maybe about a pea-sized amount because they're just small dots that I am gently working into the skin. A pea-sized amount. So see this dot, just this little dot that I have here, I've used about 3 of it. I've used 2 already. This is going to be the 3rd one. So I really don't want to apply a lot. Okay, so for concealers, if you have oily skin, please stay away from concealers that are very drying or mattifying. I would also highly recommend this because one thing that I have noticed from experience is that oily people generally, we do not produce the same amount of oil we produce in this area in our immediate under eye area. And if you use a concealer that is too mattifying or too drying, or even if you apply too much, you're going to see that the minute your skin starts breaking it out and the products are settling into your skin and your skin starts getting a bit oily or dewy again, you're going to see that there's a very big demarcation between this area and the rest of your face. There are 2 ways to avoid that. Please make sure that you do not use a concealer that is very drying. So I'm just going to apply just a very little of this, just like this. So this concealer that I'm using is a Too Faced Born This Way multi-use sculpting concealer. And I'm going to go in with a beauty blender, just blend that out really, really quickly. To set your concealer, I would highly recommend that you do not bake for too long or even bake at all. I like to bake, but what I do is I like to just press the powder into my skin like this. Do it on this end, right? The same thing. Take the same setting powder, dust this on my forehead, down the bridge of my nose, this area here, my chin. And right, I sweep everything off immediately. I don't like baking for that long. I've seen people bake for as long as 10 minutes here. The longer the powder is on your skin, the more your skin is absorbing it. So just know that if you apply too much powder, then you're going to have that whole issue once your foundation starts breaking down. You also want to set your whole face with a powder. If you have a good translucent powder that works great for your skin tone, that is fine. But this is my Iman pressed powder in Earth Medium. It's my go-to setting powder for all over. So this is it. I just finished everything really quickly off camera. I did some blush, applied lip gloss, did some mascara underneath my... No, I actually did not do mascara. Hold on. Right. I fixed that. I don't know how I actually forgot. I just applied a little bit of mascara now under my eyes, my lower lashes, and that's basically it for this video, guys. Everything that I have explained to you guys in terms of how I like to prep, how I like to prime my face and eyes, the type of foundation I like to use, the type of concealer that I like to use, and how I set them. These things are really important and will help you with wear throughout the day. So if you have oily skin and you're struggling with wear, you feel like your foundation is not, like, you're not getting the best type of wear from your makeup overall, I think you should incorporate these things and see. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to me if you're not yet subscribed. I'll see you guys in my next one. Mwah.